Hey everybody, welcome back to Conquest 2.0. And I know it's been about 2 weeks since I made another video, but I finally have time to record something today to continue on my Conquest faction focus for the new 2.0 rules. And today we're going to cover the Spires faction, which is actually the other faction that I own other than 100 Kingdoms. So I'm sure this will be a pretty deep dive and some interesting things that Spires can now do in 2.0. But first I wanted to say thanks for everybody for subscribing. I think we're up to like 270 subscribers now, which for such a focused channel and such a, not a gigantic miniatures game out there like 40K or some other larger games, that's awesome. And I just hope we keep growing and people keep getting more and more into Conquest and our scenes all over start growing so we can share this awesome game with as many people as we can. If you have listened to some of my videos and you're thinking about getting into Conquest, or if you need some new stuff for your army, I am affiliated with Frontline Gaming, and in the description of this video is an affiliate link to their web store. They have a ton of Conquest stuff. They should be getting in the new City States and Nord starter set in the next few weeks. And anything you get there, I get a little kickback, which is awesome and I appreciate. And it's all 15% off of MSRP. So if you're looking to buy some new Conquest models, I would really appreciate if you use the link. And then we'll hop into the Spire stuff now. So the Spire's got a ton of changes for 2.0 just to their army list. And we're going to start out with the supremacy abilities. I'm sorry, not the supremacy abilities, but the overall faction special rule that you get. And it's the reason I got it confused with supremacy ability is it's tied to who your warlord is. So as you can see, the first one, the sovereign lineage, is if you take a lineage highborn or a high clone executor as your warlord, during army building, you can increase the regiment's cost by 5 points, and they're going to get a clash character, so there's a +1, and a +1 to their invasion as well. So you get 2 bonuses for 5 points. I mean, that's less than you're going to pay for like a standard bearer or an officer upgrade for a unit. This is really awesome. I don't think this is the best one of these, but a lot of times, a high clone executor I think has the best supremacy ability still in the game, which we'll go over a little later. So a lot of times he's going to be your warlord anyway, and if you're looking to spend that extra 5, 10, 15 points you got on your list, throwing an extra clash on some Vanguard clones or something like that can be very, very effective. Next is the Directorate. So it's the Biomancer and the High Clone Executor again. So if you pick the High Clone Executor as your warlord, you have the choice between these two. And while this regiment or warlord is on the battlefield, all regiments in your army get the Burnout Draw event. And then only one regiment per round can do that. So the Burnout Draw event makes the unit fight a little better, but also gives them decay, which will hurt them as well a little bit. So this is actually pretty good because Burnout makes them move a little faster, and you get to pick when the regiment activates if that's the draw event that they want to activate. And yeah, it'll hurt yourself a little bit, but you have your Spires, you have those Biomancers for the healing. And the Underspire, this is my favorite one. I don't think it's the best one because the Ferrymancer has to be your warlord, and the Ferrymancer is not that great, unfortunately. But while he's on the battlefield, all Force-Grown drones, Onslaught drones, and Strix in your army get Regeneration 4 draw event. So when they draw their card, they're going to get at least 1 stand back. Because the new healing rules, you have to heal at least half of the stand to get a new stand back. But with Regeneration 4, that's going to be at least a stand every time. This can be absolutely hilarious if you just have a ton of Force-Grown drones. Onslaught drones are also really good, mixed in with some Biomancers to just up that healing even more. I think this could be an absolutely hilarious list of just a ton of Force-Grown drones. It wouldn't hold objectives very well because they're lights, but I just think regenerating like that is going to be extremely hard to kill you. Next, we're going to move on to the supremacy abilities. And the Biomancer, he has Provoke Instability, and this just one time lets you pick an infantry, cavalry, brute, or monster regiment and give them either +2, +3, or +4 attacks, depending on what type of regiment it is. But then you'll also see there, they also suffer Decay 3 or Decay 6 if it's a monster. So this is, not the best supremacy ability. We'll just go ahead and read the best one, which is the High Clone Executor next, Coordinated Assault. So one time during the game, during your first draw command card step of the round, so before you draw your first unit that's going to activate, you get to draw and resolve the first 3 of your command cards instead of just 1. So that means you get to go with 3 units before your opponent gets to go with 1, or your opponent gets to go 1 time and you get to go 3 times. So the only restriction for this is you can't have this result in any more further drawing command cards like some of the things do in Spires. But this is just like an ace in your pocket basically throughout the game. You can hold this and wait until you can get 3 charges off that your opponent, is going to try and stop somehow with his activations. You can do this so a bunch of different units can fight at once if you've already attacked your opponent. I've even had my opponent who plays Spires against me use it to just move his units all 3 up into positions that I was trying to get to, like over top of objectives and things, before I can go there. And that can be really, really annoying and strong. This is the one I would take every time if I was playing Spires and running a High Clone Executor. He's just so strong, and this is just incredibly strong to be able to go 3 times in a game where it's really I go, you go. Next we have the Lineage Highborn, and when you're creating your army list, you can select 1 Highborn or Assassin, and then they can select up to 3 mutations at no additional points cost. That's pretty cool. I run a Lineage Highborn, but usually not as the Warlord. There's a way to get 2 mutations on her already, and you have to pay the points for it. This Supremacy ability really only just pushes that Assassin or Lineage Highborn, when the other ones, as you can see, will benefit your entire army. The Ferromancer is last. I don't think I would make him a Warlord unless you're trying to run the crazy regeneration thing that might be really good or might just be a meme list, who knows. And while he's on the battlefield, all friendly regiments within 12 can reroll their failed resolve, and it's always active. This is not terrible at all, and you have actually some pretty high resolve with characters inside of regiments. We'll start talking about the actual characters themselves, and we'll start with the High Clone Executor. We already talked about his Supremacy ability, about getting to go with 3 cards or 3 units before your opponent gets to go, and that is just amazing. So he's probably going to be in your Spires list. So let's see what else we can do to add to how effective he'll be in your army. So his stats are actually really good right off the bat. He has movement 6, volley and clash at 3, 5 attacks, 4 wounds, 4 resolve, which is awesome, a defensive 2 built in, and 1 evasion. So for 85 points, he's already a little, better than like a standard 100 Kingdoms Noble Lord. But you can do a ton of stuff with this guy, where you can make him, he's kind of like the Blooded in my last video. You can make him a melee powerhouse, or you can make him a shooting powerhouse and throw him in a shooting unit. But the big difference between the Blooded and the High Clone Executor is that shooting version that you can make of him can actually go in a unit, which we'll talk about later in the Vanguard Clone Infiltrators. That is devastating. Unlike the Blooded, can kind of just go in Stalkers, which aren't the best shooting unit in the game. So here's the shooting version of the High Clone Executor, and you can see under special rules that a couple things have been added, like that Barrage 6 at range 14 with Rapid Volley gets added because I gave him a mutation of the Infiltrator variant. And then also I gave him a additional neural receptors for 5 points, which lets him take up to 2 additional mutations. I just gave him 1 more mutation, not that second one, in Biotic Hive, which gives all of his shots barrage plus 2. So he's, I believe, at 8 barrage. It didn't look like it calculated up there. Barrage 6, yep, he gets plus 8 barrage with deadly shots. And deadly shots is whenever your opponent rolls a 6 to their defense save, it causes 2 wounds instead of 1, which is awesome. So you're going to get a ton of shots with this guy, and Rapid Volley lets you get extra hits on a hit roll of 1. And with 8 shots at Volley 3, or if you're taking aim, Volley 4, this guy's going to be putting out a ton of shots. And the only other thing I haven't mentioned about the High Clone Executor yet is the tactics. They're kind of like the battle drills for the 100 Kingdoms Imperial Officer. He can take one of these for free, and for this one I've taken Loose Formation, which makes anyone shooting at the enemy, at your unit, obscured, and anyone charging you, the unit that he's in, loses their impact. And as well, spells will lose half of the number of hits rounding up. So this really minimizes the damage coming in from enemy volley actions and impact attacks and spells in the unit that he's in, which is a great choice because the unit he's going to be in, we'll pull it up right now, is, oh no I won't, Regiment. Vanguard Clone Infiltrators, who already have fluid formation, which is a great rule. Vanguard, so they're moving extra inches onto the table, and they have that same weapon profile, minus the other bonuses that the Executor got, of Barrage 6, Range 14 at Rapid Volley, at a volley of 3. So these guys are going to be able to come onto the table far. They only have a range of 14 inches, but it's still far enough, especially with the reduced range in version 2 of the game. We're going to be putting out a ton of shots with this unit with the High Clone Executor. It's not an extremely cheap combination because you can see there's 145 plus the 180, but it's, just 325 points of your total 2,000 point army can go into a unit that can just come into one of the flanks and unload volley after volley into your opponent's army, as long as you protect them, with some force-grown drones or some chaff so they don't get charged. The next character we'll talk about is another staple of the Spires in the Biomancer. Before, when these guys could super heal your entire army, basically, people could take 3 of them, and it wasn't a great situation, I don't think, but the healing on these guys has been toned down a little bit, and the healing overall has been toned down in version 2 of Conquest, but these are still basically little heal bots that in my army list sit in force-grown drones and push out heals to other units and other biomancies or buffs to other units. So before you had to buy all the biomancies, but now you get them all for free when you buy the Biomancer, kind of like mages as well. They're not spells, but they all work in a certain way and give certain buffs, and sometimes certain detriments to units depending on which one you use. So we'll take a look at the Biomancer's draw event first, then we'll get to the Biomancies. So he comes built in with Biotic Renewal, and then he can heal his own regiment a number of wounds equal to a d6, or if he's not in an infantry regiment, it's a d3. And he also has Men Flesh. So the draw event Biotic Renewal happens to your own unit, and then this is a combat or out of combat action where you can target another regiment or your own within 6, and you heal for 2 wounds. So it's not a super amount of healing, but it's still a little bit. And then we went over a Supremacy ability earlier. I don't think you'll ever take it, so we're just going to go right to the Biomancies. And the first one is Unstable Enhancement. So you draw your next command card, so the unit, when you want to use this Biomancy, make sure that unit's card you want to use it on is right underneath and within 12 inches of the Biomancer. It acts immediately and adds +2 to its march and +1 to its clash and volley. So this can really make a fast unit super fast, a normal infantry unit move quicker than your opponent expected, and hit a little harder or shoot better. Now the downside is they're going to get that decay 3 or 4 if it's Brute Cavalry, or 6 if it's a monster. And then because I don't think we've gone over what it is, and it's right here, we'll click what the decay is. So at the end of the regiment's deactivate regiment step, for each stand you're going to roll whatever the decay value is. So 3 for an infantry for this, and any 5 or 6 are taking 1 wound, not a hit, so no saves or anything like that, an actual wound. And then they don't cause resolve, but that still could be a ton. There are ways to mitigate the decay, which we'll look at a little later in the Spires from different characters, but a lot of the things that you can do in Spires to super buff your units are going to come along with this decay keyword, and it's really up to you to decide. And it's kind of the way, why the Spires are such a fun army to play is, yeah, you can make your abomination really, really good and really, really fast, but he could also really, really hurt himself, so you got to make sure whatever you hit is going to get killed. So Unstable Enhancement is a great buff on a single unit. Harvest Essence, you'll see again this is within 12 inches of the Biomancer, and they can't have activated. So they're going to suffer -1 to their attack or defense. And you'll notice this is a friendly regiment you're taking an attack or defense away from. But then the regiment that the character stand, the Biomancer, is attached to, you're going to get +1 to that. So my opponent that I was playing last week, when he was using my Spires, he had a small unit of force-grown drones, just 3 stands of them, just sitting in the back, taking up space. But his Biomancer was harvest essencing, I guess that's the right way to say that word, that small unit of force-grown drones and giving +1 attack to his big unit of force-grown drones with all the support attacks. So they were getting just a ton of attacks. Now you have Catalytic Rupture. I love some of the things in the Spires army list too that do damage to your opponent but also hurt you back. This is a friendly regiment within 12. You take d6 hits, so you do get saves against these. And then all enemy regiments in contact with you offer take the same number of hits. And they're treated as coming from the flank. So when they cause the morale test, they'll have to reroll any successful. This can be hilarious if you use a throwaway unit of force-grown drones. Throw them in there, and your opponent maybe committed multiple units to getting in there. And yeah, you're going to kill your expendable force-grown drones, but you're also going to do some hits on the enemy unit. Grant Virulence, I was going to say Virulence, but I don't think that's how you say that. Again, 12 inches away from your character stand. And you get Deadly Blades or Deadly Shots. So Deadly Blades, I believe it's just on a 1. Oh no, this is what the Executor gets. I always get this confused with the one where if you roll any 1s, it goes through the defense. But this one is if your opponent rolls 6 to defend, you take 2 wounds instead of 1. And last but not least is Essence Transfer. You draw your next command card. You can put that command card at the bottom of your stack and take the one that's in the bottom of your stack, and the one at the bottom acts instead of the one that you have there. So this is kind of a cool way that you can get a little like insurance in your command deck. Maybe you've messed up and the next card that's going is not the one you need, but you put the card on the bottom that, you know, is a good, can activate anytime kind of unit. You'll notice my Biomancer just went up to 160 points, and that's because I think his retinue of Mastery of Flesh, getting that tier 3 is extremely important. So tier 1 just gives the regiment Regeneration 2 draw event, which is not terrible. For 10 points, that's a steal, I think. Now we're starting to get in the interesting things as we get to tier 2, because you can use that Mend Flesh character action twice. And remember, that's to pick a unit within 8 and heal them for 2. You can't do the same unit twice, but if you're in the middle of a bunch of different units, that's pretty useful. And tier 3 is when it starts to get really interesting, and you can resolve 1 additional Biomancy per round. That second Biomancy can't go on the same unit, but again, if you're in the middle of a couple units, you can start to buff up multiple pieces of your army, and it starts to get very, very strong. So there are different ways to build the Biomancer. I would always take one with Mastery of the Flesh 3, just because doing 2 Biomancies is so strong. Next we'll talk about my poor guy, the Ferromancer. A lot of Spires players probably have multiple Ferromancers because of buying them from the old starter sets and things like that. And he's 90 points, he gets all of his Ferromancies now. And unfortunately the Ferromancies just aren't as good as Biomancies. He gets a special rule, which is Pheromone Glam Burst. So kind of like the Mend Flesh of the Biomancer, this is what the Ferromancer gets. You'll see target friendly regiment with an 8. You get +1 to your march or resolve characteristic till the end of the round. This is not terrible, making it go slightly faster. It's a nice little buff, but I mean, obviously you want the Biomancer to heal too, is better. And we'll take a look at his Ferromancies in Siphon Strength first. So a lot of these are going to do what this one says. You pick a regiment within 12 of the character stand, and you place that command card at the bottom of the stack. So a lot of these are going to have you place that next unit's command card at the bottom of the stack. And then for this one, it adds +1 of their attacks characteristics and gains the Dread special rule until the end of the round. That's a great buff. Just throwing that card at the bottom of the stack kind of hurts, but you could stack your way in the deck or activate your regiments in a way where this isn't a huge detriment. Accelerated Hibernation, again 12 inches away from the Ferromancer, put that card at the bottom of the stack, and that regiment heals 4 wounds. It's a kind of a bigger penalty to pay if you're putting them at the bottom of the stack to heal just 4 wounds, which is just going to be a stand in a lot of cases. Pheromotic Drive is actually a really interesting one. and you target a regiment, and it acts immediately, and then you can take 2 actions of the same type this round, but you suffer decay 3, 4, 6, depending if you're infantry or up to a monster. So this can be just amazing on a unit of like marksman clones. It'll let them shoot twice. Vanguard clone infiltrators, letting them shoot twice. A unit can attack twice with this. If you're taking a Ferromancer, you're taking it because of Ferromantic Drive, basically. But notice the decay is in there, which can really hurt your own unit, but if you have a Biomancer, you can heal them up again. Induce Vigor. Put the card at the bottom of the command stack. Then you're going to get Tenacious and reroll Morale test of 6 until the end. You're not ever going to use this, unfortunately. Ferromantic Drive is just so much better. And then Ferromantic Compulsion. So you lose Broken and you gain Inspired until the end of the round. With Broken being so bad, I can definitely see you using this at some point. Maybe it's that second Ferromancy you want to use because you've gone up all the way to Mastery 3 for Mastery of the Flesh, although I don't think you do that if you take a Ferromancer. So moving on from the sad Ferromancer, we'll take a look at a character that is really, really good. And the Lineage Highborn is good just because she is just a melee powerhouse, and she goes in a unit of melee powerhouses to create a combination of a character regiment that no one wants to fight. So you'll see I've already added a couple things to the Lineage Highborn here, bringing her to 165 points. There are ways to tool her up, give her a bunch of different mutations, make her very expensive, but I find look at her stats: 6 attacks at Clash 3, she has Evasion 2, Defense 4 built in, Impact 3, 1 Cleave, with a Venom mutation she gets Deadly Blades, so she's already good enough right there at fighting, and that's all she needs to be doing. And the only other thing that I added to her was the Attracting Pheromones, which gives the unit she's in the flank special rule. So in version 2 you can pick a unit to come in and avatar him, our medium, which she's in, but it's nice to be able to pick those 2 medium units on the second turn to come in with her, guaranteeing the avatar to come in with the Attracting Pheromones. And then while we're here, we'll take a look at the avatar, which is the unit she'll be inside. And they're movement 7, and she's movement 7 as well. Okay, so nobody slows anybody down, that's good. Just Clash 2, but 4 attacks each, and Defense 4 built in, with Evasion 2 built in, so they're pretty sturdy, with Resolve 4. What is her Resolve? Is it higher? Nope, Resolve 4. So they're a pretty good defensive unit with great offensive output at that Support 2, Impact 2, and still Cleave 1. And just mix between the Lineage Highborn and the Avatar, that's a steal. In Warband by themselves, you really don't even need to add anything else. Like, she can add Centaur Avatar, which are fast-moving, heavy cavalry of the Spires, but you really don't even need those, and for the cost of 330 points, you have a nice little melee missile that you can throw in your Spires army. Last character for the Spires is a pretty cool one in the Mimetic Assassin. He's pretty unique in the game of Conquest. He is an assassin, like his name implies, and he has rules that support it in the game, which is really awesome, like the Chameleonic Epidermis. So once per round, you can make a free Seek New Escort action, and you can Seek New Escort even if the regiment that you're trying to go to is still engaged with enemy regiments. And then this allows the Mimetic Assassin to kind of just pop up out of nowhere and start dueling your opponent's characters, which he really wants to do because he has Quicksilver Strike, Flurry, and Purity of Purpose, which Purity of Purpose, when he makes a dual action, any failed defense rolls count as 2 wounds for your opponent, but it doesn't stack with Deadly Blades. This guy, with 5 attacks and a Clash of 4, he doesn't have any Cleave built in or anything like that, so you want to maybe try and get something built in there where he's going to take away your opponent's armor. But he's a very interesting character to go out there and start dueling people, making units broken, and you can just throw him in a cheap regiment of Force-Grown Drones. You can also take Vanguard clones or Bound clones just to get him up the board, and then he can start Seek New Escorting for free into other units to get into those duels. So I would really just put him in a cheap unit of Force-Grown Drones, have that be my unit in the back with an assassin and seek new escort, because he moves 8 inches right up into my front lines to where I want to duel maybe some weaker characters. That's it for our Spires 2.0 overview. The Spires is kind of going to be I think they're the hardest army to start playing, just because of all the different Ferromancies, Biomancies, and how they work. They're not like spells of other factions, and there's a lot of special rules like decay and effects where you can affect the card draw. But it kind of makes them one of the most rewarding factions to play, because if you get all that stuff, working in sync, then it can be extremely powerful on the tabletop. But the downside is, if all that stuff doesn't work together, a lot of your units are just slightly weaker than other factions in the game, and they'll fall apart pretty easily on their own. So thanks for listening, and I think next we're going to do Wadrun, and but it won't be probably this next weekend, because I actually have a tournament coming up on the 25th at Titan Games and Hobbies, where I'll be taking my 100 Kingdoms, which are still not fully painted, unfortunately. They're getting close. I think we have 8 players right now, 3 rounds, so I'll definitely take some pictures, and the next video that comes out will be a tournament recap of who won, kind of some of my games and how they went, and not full battle reports, but kind of just talking about it with a picture overlay. Thanks for listening, everybody, and good luck in your Conquest games out there.